Right here.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the October 6th ZBA meeting. At this moment, if we can just stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please take note that there are two emergency exits on this floor, one of them to your left and one of them in front of you in the upper left of the room. Restrooms are behind you down the hallway to the right. At this time, we're going to begin the October 6th hearing. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the July 7th meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Second? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion approved. I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing tonight.
Second.
Second. Great, so tonight we have two items on our agenda. The first item is the Greenhaven Rd Community Solar System, requesting an area variance on 97 South Greenhaven Road, grid number 675700-082660 in zone C3. The applicant is seeking an 81-foot setback variance from section 155 attachment 2 schedule B of the town code, which requires a minimum rear and side yard setback of 150 feet when abutting a residential district. At this time, we can open this to the public comment. Yes. Please come up and state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Bill Crane, 254 Gardner Hollow Road. I'm speaking with deep concern about this area variance. It will mean cutting down a whole lot of trees. The total project is going to be cutting down nearly 300 trees. And to put this project into context, I favor solar panels. Solar panels are good, they're really good and helpful in combating global warming. However, so are trees. And there are many old trees. Trees absorb carbon dioxide. The excess carbon dioxide contributes to global warming. Trees are really our friends on Earth. They prevent soil. They have other benefits besides doing an equally good job of combating global warming. They prevent soil erosion, they provide homes for wildlife, they absorb pollutants, they keep streams cool and clean, and they add beauty to our town. This project contradicts the town's comprehensive plan, which urges us to preserve the rural nature of Beekman. With all the trees going down, I'd like to imagine a world in which we have no trees and solar panels everywhere. What kind of world would that look like? Just imagine that image. According to the state guidelines, any zoning board of appeals must consider in granting a variance whether the variance would have an adverse impact on the physical environment or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. Yes, this would have a very adverse effect. To grant this area variance would mean cutting down a lot of trees. And also, it's an 18th century farm. It's of historic significance. This is, the comprehensive plan says we should cherish these places. Not only that, there are 2 endangered species, according to the planning board's engineer at the last meeting, the Indiana bat and the bog turtle on this property. This whole plan, please reject this plan and stand for nature and protecting our trees and our natural environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crane. Yes, please come up, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Susan Glavich, 64 Lime Mill Road.
First of all, I would like to say that having the public comment at the beginning of a public hearing, to me, is kind of backwards, because without knowing the details of the project, it's very hard to make an intelligent comment about things that we might have concern about. The information in the agenda, I feel, is not very informative. The applicant is seeking an 81-foot setback variance from section 155 attachment. There was no attachment to look at, to Schedule B of Town Code. It's not clear whether the 81-foot setback variance is for both rear and sidelines, or if it's rear only or sideline only. Again, I can't tell from the information that was provided online. It would be helpful, if you want the public to make these comments at the beginning of the meeting, to have the project paperwork available for us to look at. And I would encourage the board to look at the Town of Wappinger's zoning board agendas posted online, also the Town of East Fishkill. The information provided ahead of those meetings is quite substantial. So I'm just going to kind of wing it, because I really don't know too much about this project yet. But it sounds to me like if they're looking for an 81-foot setback variance, I'm assuming it's both rear and sideline, I'm guessing. To me, that's substantial. That's almost like half of what the town code requires. So that's a lot of footage. So I would say, regarding test number 3, that the requested variance would be substantial. I do, you know, I have kind of followed this online with the planning board a little bit, and I know that there are quite a number of neighbors that are concerned about the visual impact of this project on their properties. So test number 1, I would say that yes, this project creates an undesirable effect in the neighborhood, and could be potentially a detriment to nearby properties, in that the property values could be affected by it. I don't know whether the applicant can achieve this by feasible alternative, because I haven't heard the applicant make his presentation yet, so I don't know if that's an issue or not. And I'm not sure if the alleged difficulty was self-created, because whoever owned this property had been using it as a farm. I'm not sure what the regulations are with regard to solar farms in terms of how the zoning fits in with that. But I'm sure that this property could be used for other things besides a solar farm. So those are just the things that I would like to say. And again, I would strongly urge the board to consider holding public comment to the end of a presentation, so that the public can make informed comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glavich.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do tend to agree with Ms. Glavich, just based on the procedure and the order of things. So if the applicant is there, now I think would be a good time to have them just do their presentation. And if they want to answer any public questions or comments that arise from the public after that comment period, we can circle back to them again. But I think now would be a good time to allow the applicant to make their presentation to the public, so the public can be informed while they're making their comments.
Yeah, there's a thing right there.
I'll just introduce myself. My name is Terrence Nolan. I'm a project developer with New Leaf Energy. With my colleague Greg Gibbons, who's a civil engineer, and also with our counsel Alicia Leglin from Hodgson and Rush. And we are prepared to talk about the project. We actually have been in working in front of the planning board for, I think we're on a year now, and had public hearings that went in front of the planning board over, I believe, a 7-month period about this project. So from the point of view of it being discussed, that piece of it has been. But of course, we're here on the narrow point of seeking a setback variance, as you pointed out, area variance. So Greg will explain exactly where we're looking for this to take place.
Thanks, Terrence.
to see it. Put it over there and we could all see it.
Yes.
You can't see, but is that
If you-
okay?
Yeah.
We can show it to everybody. Yeah, I just want to make sure the public can see it while I'm talking about it. The parcel is here. You hopefully see it's surrounded by a pink line. This is Greenhaven Rd. This is the Diacon property. This is the horse farm, or horse barn, which is adjacent to where we're looking for the easement. The easement, the setback variance is actually along the rear of the property line. This direction, this here, there is, I think it's a 69-foot variance that we're looking for from the 150. The parcel that we're adjacent to is a horse farm. It's not a residential property, which is what the zoning is. And the project itself is about 11 acres of 2 different fenced-in solar farms. There's putting in significant vegetation along the south and the west side. From our discussions in the planning board, we're installing a generic gravel entrance, limited use gravel entrance driveway, mostly following the existing gravel driveway that's already there. Because the solar panels are set into the old farm fields that haven't been farmed in probably over 10 years. The farm is basically abandoned and dilapidated. It's not going to be farmed again by the property owner. We are clearing a total of 2.1 acres on the site, mostly along the western mostly along the western boundary. The eastern rear property line, again, is where we're asking for the variance. There is a DEC stream that runs along the outside of our property line. There's a 100-foot setback on both sides of that legally for DEC that can't be cleared of vegetation. There's an average of 250 feet of existing vegetation that will remain on the side bordering the horse farm. And we've done everything we can to just keep our system within the previously farmed area. We feel very strongly that there's no visual impact to the farm area. And the rest of the site, we have already gone through extensive permitting with the planning board. We discussed the endangered species, we discussed the wetland impacts. We've clarified that there won't be any impacts per DEC, Army Corps, State Historic Preservation Office. They've all agreed that our system and our design has mitigated any impacts to the environment to the level where they gave us a negative declaration through seeker at the last meeting. So we have a negative declaration on environmental impacts previously from the planning board, and now we're just focusing on the variance along the rear property line. Alicia can clarify a little bit more. I believe it might be considered the side as well, one very small portion, but for the most part it is, it's at most 69 feet what we're asking for. It's very close to the same amount, the whole length of the solar panels. And I apologize if the solar panels do not stick out very well. We just traced along them. They're supposed to be white printout.
I'll add while Craig is just saying that, is that this is a approximately 3 megawatt AC size site. Most community solar sites typically are around that 5 megawatt size. This is at 3 megawatt size. And part of the two things just to add in terms of how the discussion has emerged with the planning board and the public hearing also that has been involved in those meetings, that we're doing a substantial amount of visual screening along with the neighboring property, with the Nitron property. We are going to resolve, as I reassured John tonight, the existing land use issue with drainage easement that needs to be conveyed to that the variance allows the project to proceed because it gets us to a minimum size from an economic perspective in terms of the cost of interconnection and also the cost of the project with all the plantings and so forth to make the project work.
I have a quick question, if I may. When
Sure.
you say a visual along the way, what do you mean by that?
Like from the horse farm property,
Yes.
if they're looking toward our property, then
Right.
they won't be able to see.
You won't be able to see the.
What kind of barrier are you planning on putting up?
There's already an existing
Whatever is there.
existing fully vegetated DEC, like
Okay.
250 foot buffer.
Okay.
That neither us nor them could go inside. 'Cause you can't permit inside of that. So there's a big, very vegetated section that's mature trees that will
Okay.
be remaining between there, and you can't see through it.
That's what
So
you-
we didn't add additional plantings because they wouldn't do anything more than what we already have.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is the owner here tonight? The owner of the property?
No, she's not.
Is she a resident of, I mean, does she live in the town of
She does.
Beekman?
Yeah, part-time. Her son lives on the property. She lives half a year.
That's not true. She doesn't live here. She lives in Florida.
Well, she spent
Okay,
the
so,
summer here.
okay, my next question is,
Okay.
apparently she lives here part-time. She's a snowbird or whatever. Is there a reason that they're doing, like, do they need, where's the profit going from this solar? Who is getting the profit
Well,
from the
lease-
energy? When the
there's a
energy
lease
comes,
payment. There's a lease payment.
okay, so the property's being leased to your,
We are leasing the property
You
from
are.
the owner.
okay.
So she will get,
So she obviously gets, I guess what you would call it, rent.
yes.
And you're taking those profits and doing what with them?
Well, we are going to, this is going to be a solar array that will sell electricity to subscribers.
To subscribers.
Yes.
So not in the town, not to the people that live around that property.
People who live around that property could subscribe to
They
this.
could,
Yes.
at a discount, because then they have to look at it. Correct?
Well, the discount that's offered is really all through NYSERDA and New York State rules,
Okay.
but it's approximately a 10% discount on your electric bill if you choose green energy.
I was just wondering, because if it goes through, the people that, it will affect, or may affect, they should get compensated, because, it's a large sum of property. It's a large.
So we have, and we're here in front of the zoning board, so we're asking for an area variance.
Okay.
Well, with respect to the site and with respect to local zoning,
Okay.
we've been otherwise following
Yeah.
this
Understandably.
process. And then just to your point, because we're very aware of the concerns that the neighbors have brought up, because they've been a consistent voice at the meetings. We've been working to address concerns in a variety of different ways.
Okay.
And I understand the impact, and we're working to address those.
And I got one more question. I'm sorry. I'm asking a lot of questions here. Oh my God, my next question was, now I understand there's also going to be lights, like there's a 7-foot chain link fence going, because it says it in here.
There'll be a one motion sensor light at the equipment pad. which is
Oh, there's one light.
right in this, correct, and it was
Okay.
just motion sensor if it happened to be working on it at night, which they won't be because
I would hope not.
it only worked during the day.
It's only working during the day, really, there's no sun at night.
Right,
And then,
yeah.
and the walkway is behind this property, correct?
The driveway.
No, the trail, the rail trail is behind that property. If you go past that farmhouse, on the right-hand side is the parking lot for the rail trail. Okay,
Okay, yeah,
but you do end up going past that property, don't you?
right.
On the rail trail.
But we did confirm there won't be any visual
Yeah.
impact from the rail trail.
And so who polices this during the night? Like, does it get policed? Like, how many times do you come out and?
It's a
Survey it
it's
and all
on
that.
24/7 maintenance. They know when one panel starts acting up or doesn't work correctly. They they know back at the, basically call it the command center.
Okay.
We're always maintaining and operating the system. So they know when anything goes wrong, we'll send somebody out there. But generally, there's just a couple times a year they go out there to mow. If there's no issues, they'll go out there to mow, they'll check on things, make sure that there's nothing, nobody's broken into the gates or
Yeah, that's what I was
anything like that.
concerned about,
A couple
because you have
times a
people
year.
going back there.
There will be signs placed on the gates that
Okay.
for a number, so anybody can call if anybody has any concerns or wants any information, they can call the number and immediately talk to somebody 24/7.
Okay,
Because they're always monitoring the system.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you share how long is the lease for? Do you have a
25-year lease with,
25-year?
yes, with 4 5-year renewal periods. So it could be a 45-year lease.
25.
So it's an initial term of 25 years with 4 5-year renewal periods.
Okay.
And it's not clear, there's also going to be a decommissioning bond, which is a separate matter that we're talking to the planning board about, but we don't know what the technology will be like 25 years from now, but we have the ability to potentially extend it.
And could also be that the owner no longer wants to lease it. What would happen?
The owner is obligated to lease it. Those extensions are on our option to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Only because if we were to give the approval is really forever or
That's it.
unlimited.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think the root question is, are there any contingencies that are made if, in the event that the current homeowner
Yeah.
is no longer? And what happens then?
Well, so if someone purchases the property, it's still subject to the lease. So this is still going to continue to operate. And also something that I'll mention as I go through the test and all the factors. And we often suggest if there's any kind of hesitation for zoning boards when they're granting area variance like this, if they're concerned about what happens with the variance, if someone else is property or anything like that, you're completely well within your authority to impose reasonable conditions on you granting the area variance. So you can impose a condition that this variance is only applicable when the property is used for solar. So once this is no longer used for solar, and let's say it gets decommissioned, it gets completely removed, in 30 years someone buys and wants to build a house, wants to build a restaurant, something like that, they have to now go back to meeting the 150-foot requirement. The area variance is no longer applicable, and that's completely fine to do. And
Yeah, that would be a condition you
Is
could
everything
place
else
on.
input on that? Is that correct? We can just give
Input
input
on
on
that.
that.
Input on that, yeah.
but I can, go through the factors.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Can you confirm that that is correct? In other words, we could just give 25 years at this point and be renewable if things change in 25 years.
You can condition the variance if you'd like to, well, yes, I mean, you could do that. What I would do is I would wait to kind of hear the input from the rest of the public before making that decision.
Okay.
If that is something you'd like to consider, we could always, at the end of, the public comment tonight, adjourn the public hearing and then allow for more public comment and more comment from the applicant, next month. But I think we should hear from the public, or, once the applicant's finished, hear from the public moving forward, then we can have a more full discussion at that point.
Okay.
So I'd like to offer that as just something to keep in mind. A lot of solar projects do that if they are subject to a variance. But if it would be helpful to kind of, I think, go through these factors. A lot of people brought them up. So if I can help with any concerns that these raise, I'd be happy to do that now. So as was mentioned, of course, an area variance, it's a 5-factor test. It's a balancing test, so the more factors you meet, the better it is. You don't have to meet all 5. So the first factor is whether or not it's going to create an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or the neighborhood. So because this is an area variance, not a use variance, by definition, it's not going to create a change in the character of the neighborhood because it's an allowable use, right? So it's been determined by the town board that because it's in the zoning code, it's an allowable use. also a mixed-use area. So there's residential, commercial, industrial, institutional, all in this area. So solar does well in a mixed-use environment, especially when it's well screened, how Greg explained it, and certainly. So that would be the first part. And as far as the visual screening, as well as Greg mentioned, there's in the area where the actual area variance is being requested, there's a natural 200 to 250 foot forested buffer. There's a big chunk that is actually being requested in the variance. So there's a huge forested area that's not being touched. And that's pretty much exactly where we need that extra piece of that. So that's helpful as well. Another factor is that there really is no other feasible way to site this project here. One, it's incredibly difficult to site solar in general, trying to find a good property, near interconnection lines, something that has good topography, not too many trees, things like that. And then also when you find a good site, trying to lay out the panels is very difficult. You're trying to avoid as many constraints as possible. There's wetlands, some wetlands, you try to avoid that. You try to get, not have to clear too many trees with it, which they've done. So it's really, when you have a size like this, it is difficult. And as Terrence mentioned, this is only a 3 megawatt. Community solar is usually 5. So it's really, you can't really make it any smaller in order to be feasible. The interconnection costs and the development costs alone are very high. So it can only be a certain size. As you know, an alternative that doesn't ultimately give the applicant a better benefit isn't really, a true alternative.
Yeah.
So the next would be whether or not it's substantial. Here, the first point that I would make is that when you take a step back and you think about the reason that you have additional setbacks between residential and non-residential property is to protect residential property from noisy restaurants, from factories, from things with big lights, things like that. So when you have, in this code, when you have 2 residential properties next to each other, you only need 8 feet. When you have an industrial or commercial next to a residential, you need 150. So with this kind of development, you're not getting that. There's no odd hours, noise, emissions, dust, fumes, all that stuff that you're protecting residential properties from. So really the 80 foot is almost more appropriate, which it needs, right? But technically, yes, this is considered an industrial or commercial property. It's in the commercial zone, so the 150 foot is the requirement. So looking at that, the case law is pretty clear on how you determine whether or not an area variance is being requested is substantial, and how you do that is a totality of circumstances, right? So there have been cases where zoning boards will allow up to a 77% deviation because there was very little impact, it was not self-created, didn't create, an undesirable change in the community character, things like that. So it's a totality of circumstances test, and here they really have done an incredible job trying to make this layout where as minimally invasive as possible. So altogether, it's really not incredibly substantial, especially because it's not the entire length, and again, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, it's only a couple spots where the extra distance is needed. It's not the entire length.
Show those spots again, please.
Yeah.
Show those spots.
This here.
Okay.
It's not the entire property line.
Is that white line where the current lot line is, or
That's the
where?
setback, so the pink is
Where
the
do
lot.
you want, so that's the current lot line.
Correct. This is the lot line, the white line is the setback.
And so the
red-
white line is not where you want your variance to be, it's where the current.
That's the existing setback.
That's the
So,
existing setback.
property line with
So
plus
farther
100 feet.
towards the street.
So we're getting closer towards the street, in an area which is previously farmed and cleared.
So where is it, if you could show us on there where that 81, where that, if a variance is granted, where that line would be?
How many acres did they lose if they have to go 150? Not a lot.
The white line,
So
can you see that?
that's nothing.
It's
Really?
So what do you want to look at?
There's the white line is the setback requirement. The black line, which you can see, the zigzag again, because that's the geometric how the solar lines up, is where we're seeking to be over the line.
So you're pushing it to the orange line?
Not quite, you can see that.
People here for something else.
The fence is allowed to be
feel bad.
setback, so it's not, the fence is
Huh?
Pink line is the property.
property. So the white line is 150-foot setback from the pink line.
I have a question.
I just showed this.
If you were given, were not given, or given, if you were not, let's just say given, and you have to do 150 feet, that really doesn't get rid of a lot of acreage there, right? For
It gets rid of a substantial amount.
how much substantial amount?
About half a megawatt.
Half a
This is
megawatt.
roughly-
Okay, so what's feasible to put up a solar system?
We are right now,
Are you at almost your lowest
we
amount?
are, because of the size overall is small. So
Okay.
we are. This
Well,
is-
I think usually you're allowed to put up almost 11 acres, am I correct?
The normal size for a site, well, the normal, in this kind of solar that we develop, 5 megawatts, typically 20 acres.
20 acres, yeah.
We're at 11, we're just under 11.
We're just at under 11. And, you know, this is a
You're
large
just-
parcel, but there's a substantial wetlands area that we're avoiding in the middle, so we've got 2 separate fenced off arrays.
There's
Okay.
also, buildings and stuff right at the front of the property line off the road, so there's only so much like actual land that they can do.
Okay, so
We pushed it back.
So what's the lowest amount that you can go, megawatts?
This is the lowest.
You're at three what again?
It's at, maybe 3.2.
3.2. So, and that's the lowest, and it's gotta go at least to 3.
Well, I mean,
It doesn't quite work that way as far as like
Okay.
taking feet off the,
Okay.
taking the panel off versus feet.
Okay.
It's not like a, it's.
I
hard to
get your
visualize,
gist,
you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Yeah.
And these are 8-foot panels?
The front of them is about 5.5.
5.5?
And it slopes up to about 8.
8.
Yeah, and then, it's slope, which is not a super slope, so I could be up.
I have one more question that doesn't have to do with this. Did the owner of the property ever come to a planning board meeting?
Yeah, she was here at the last.
She or
meeting a couple
he?
weeks ago.
He.
She was here a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
She commented.
I gotta just say, it concerns me that resident is not here at any meeting. At this meeting, I'm happy that they came to the planning, but to not come to a zoning one, that's wrong. If it's your property and you have people that are concerned about their values of their houses and their properties, then gosh darn it, you should show up.
I understand.
That is just disrespectful.
I understand.
Because he may not be a resident of the town of Beekman. He may live in Manhattan for all you know, or I'm sure you know, and own property because his mother owned that house.
so we have a lease with Carolyn Hunter,
Okay,
who is the owner of the property, who's done a title search.
okay,
Her son lives on the property now,
okay.
in the house. I understand from a residency standpoint, she may very well be, I'm not surprised if she's very well a resident in Florida. But she's here frequently in the summer.
But what I'm trying to say is that if you're asking,
But ultimately,
Come to a planning board meeting.
but ultimately, the
I mean, this is
solar
for
developer
zoning,
the applicant.
yes.
They are the applicant, the property owner is not.
You're right.
The property owner is frankly at this point irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because the.
I mean, that's
tenant,
it.
for
I'm
lack of a
just-
better word, is the applicant.
Can I make another comment, just because
Yeah.
I know there's general neighborhood concern here? The net effect of this project will do a couple of things. First of all, we're going to resolve a neighboring title concern, which is a thing, but it's something that's going to get resolved. It's going to stabilize the use of the property. It'll be monitored, it'll be clean, it'll be secure, and it'll be quiet. And it will be, once this is up and running, it will be the way it is, and things won't change. As it stands now, this is a situation where I'm not really that familiar with the background, but I don't know what the alternative might be for the landowner. I don't know if another proposal comes down the pike that a neighborhood perspective, I'm just wondering that.
Right, and not only, as I mentioned, I don't think, and it's our position that of course this is, not creating a detriment to any nearby properties and things like that, but it's also creating a net benefit. Terrence before explained this is a community solar project, which means that anyone in the town can subscribe. You get to do absolutely nothing. All you do is subscribe. You don't change a single thing about how you pay your electric bills, and you get a discount. So this is a community benefit. Not only that is the applicant will be entering into a pilot with the town. They're doing a pilot.
Well, the town is opted out, so we'll be
Okay.
paying full tax.
Okay, so then, all right, so instead of doing the pilot, you're getting full tax benefit without any strain on community resources. So you're not adding more kids to the school district, you're not adding, a big development where there's firefighting concerns, you're not straining the community, but you're getting all of that tax money. So there are benefits, and solar developers, of course they do this for a living. I represent solar developers almost pretty much for a living, and we know that there are studies out there that show that property values are not impacted by solar development. So this really is a community benefit.
Yeah, how many subscribers can 3 megawatts hold?
So
Maintain.
this solar array would, I don't have an engineering background, but should power anywhere between 300 and 400 homes per year when it's up and active. It's not a 5 megawatt, it's a 3 megawatt. So it'll be when the sun is shining and it's putting energy into the grid.
Okay.
It will be able to fully power approximately 300
Not a lot,
homes.
is it?
So that's like me going to Veridian and it's through NICEAG. Is that
Yes.
kind of like?
Kind of like that.
Yeah,
yes.
kind of like.
You should get a discount.
So at your maximum power at 3 megawatts, you're powering 300 to 400 homes at full capacity. Is that correct?
Correct.
There's a few more homes in the town of Beekman than 300 or 400.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
yeah.
seems.
Yeah.
And now they're obtaining, I'm sure that energy is coming from all different sources, including fossil fuels. But this will be one green energy source in town.
And people get to take advantage of it without having to spend the money to put the panels on their homes. So that's incredible. And you get to, say that your power is coming from a renewable source. You don't have to, engage in the big expense of your panel on your house and going through all of that.
Does that make sense to you?
Benefit from community solar.
Can I ask for clarification?
400 homes? Does that make sense to you?
You're sending this power to the grid, right? Not sending it to individual houses.
Correct.
So it's going to the grid.
Right.
We're not going to subscribe to the regular,
No,
to the power company.
Right.
that's correct.
That's correct. You're-
Yeah.
Energy, electrons are, when they're hit the grid, they're fundable.
So to say, well,
If
the
you
town
can, I
will
would
benefit,
postpone the
the town
vote.
people will benefit, is not
If
true.
you can, I would
No, you,
postpone
It's
the
going to
vote.
go to the grid.
it does come from this. And they,
As many places, as many.
Abstain?
it's an intermittent source, right? So it does, it's, supplemented.
It'll only take
Time voting on this tonight.
I mean,
it'll only take 300
there was something about it that does not make sense to me, and I'm not sure what it is.
I can't answer this tonight. I can't.
They do have-
It really bothers me.
you will use these, and then they'll do a match till it's full. So
It bothers me that he's not. I want to know how much that guy lives in that house.
power you need is the amount of panels to you. So that it is actually your power is coming from.
So I think Terrence told me as an adjoining property, we could subscribe. Was it a 20-year contract?
That would be if you would become an anchor tenant. that would
If you choose.
be interested in entering into a power purchase agreement, you could potentially do that.
So
You should have done those poor people.
It would be a substantial period of time.
But that's different than if anyone from the community can subscribe. You can subscribe or unsubscribe, very easily. And there's no change in your bill.
If you're heavy power user like a commercial.
No, not tonight,
uh,
not tonight.
And then the last point that I would just like to make, and then I will stop talking, promise, is that, of course, it's our position as well that this isn't necessarily self-created because of the difficulty in siting a solar project. So not only is it difficult to find a piece of property that's available, someone will forego other types of development to allow solar. It's close enough to interconnection. You don't have to take down a bunch of trees. There isn't a ton of wetlands, things like that. It's very hard to find a site, and you can do that. And then when you do, the next set of constraints come in, and it's how do I, put all the panels on here without, getting into the wetlands, without having to take too many trees down, without getting too close to the neighbors. project here. All the natural constraints around it really force the applicant to need that extra couple, that extra bit of feet here, and then up in this corner again, which is also why someone else asked why it was rear and side, because of the funky way it kind of curves into that, it's kind of rear and kind of side. So that was the question. So this really is a minimal, possible way to get this project up and running.
You talk a lot about the steady state. You said, quiet, clean. On your variance report, it said it wasn't going to be done in phases, the installation. It was going to be in one big project management activity. It mentioned in the variance report, it said this is going to be loud, it's going to be dirty. We never really talked about how long. You're putting in roads, you're putting in like 2,700 panels on a bridge structure, you're putting in fences, you're putting in all that infrastructure to collect it. What time frame are we going to be under that? Disruptive environment.
The heavy construction end of it takes about 3 months. So everything else, putting in, it's drilling in the ground screws, that's loud. Bringing in the gravel for the road, that's loud. Cutting out the 2 acres of trees, that's loud. But that doesn't take very long. And then, installing the panels and installing the electrical equipment, that's very quiet. And that takes longer on average than the rest of that. So it'll be like 2, if you would have I'm speaking for a larger site typically. So it could be 2 months that you have, loud construction activities. But I believe we said 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. were the limits in the secret document, Monday through Friday, possibly Saturday.
So 2 to 3 months disruptive and then start to online is how long?
Online is a different question, but fully constructed, we typically assume about 12 months.
Yeah, it would take, again, we have to have inspections from NICEAG, and then finally get what's known as a commercial operation date, and then that's when once the safety inspections are done, that's when
Do they have to?
switch on your right.
I have a couple more questions, I'm sorry.
Nothing's happening on the site. And it's 25 years to get it.
Sometimes when you have solar, there has to be a
Mr. Chairman,
sub.
I don't know, in terms of monitoring the public.
No, we were just going to go there. Are you complete with your presentation? Is there any other comments you have?
The last thing I would say is that we've been, we permit projects all over in New York. In each case, we try to respond to concerns that are brought up by the community. And we've been working with the community here now for a year on this site. So a lot of the comments that are coming up, there are other comments that aren't coming up because we've already addressed them with some of the public. But I just want to make sure that folks understand we've been at this for a while in an attempt to make this work to meet the public's concerns. That's all.
I just have a couple quick questions, maybe a question and a comment. You have mentioned a couple times that this was not self-created. On the zoning board, what that means to me is that somebody is already in the property and they're looking for a variance for something that they need, that should be done, and they cannot do it any other way. You are choosing this property to begin with, knowing what the issues are. And the second part of that is, we're talking 300-400 homes, and I'm wondering why are you choosing this area for what to me seems very little return. And knowing Dutchess County the way I know, I cannot imagine that there isn't a property out there that cannot fit your needs better. I have to tell you, those 3 points are kind of questionable to me.
So basically, it comes down to the name speaking better than I can, what they do all day, but it is very difficult to find a property that's close enough to infrastructure that needs to be able to interconnect the project, so you can't put it anywhere. You need to find a property that's big enough to host, and this is about as small as you can get, to host a project. It needs to have, it can't be too steep slope, it can't be have too many wetlands, it can't be too forested. That cuts down constantly how many properties are available in the property. And then once you get on the site, like I said, there's so many constraints on the site that you have to try to figure out how you're going to put the layout and be as little and least impactful as possible.
But
Did,
it's,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry. but
Did
it
you
still
seek
does not
him
seem
out,
so
the
creative
owner
to
out,
me.
or did the owner seek you out?
I would, just Mr. Chairman, I would limit discussion as far as kind of decision-making on the.
Okay, on his own.
Until the public hearing's closed.
Right.
Just kind of a point, and I think the board is going to end up seeking probably
Yeah.
some written legal advice on this, the way it sounds just from the questions. But somebody can come into a lot, essentially the law doesn't necessitate an applicant, foreseeing that they may need a variance depending on their plans.
Okay.
That's why they're in front of you. So, what I would do here, if the applicant is done, we can take some public comment and then, we'll decide what to do from there. But I think we should move on to public comment this time.
We're open for public comment. Yeah. Hello again, Mr. Green.
Yeah, hello. It's a little easier to speak now that we've heard some information. And let's say, first of all, they have been, I've been to all the meetings, the planning board, they have been here for a year. Part of the problem was there was a lot of misrepresentations. There was errors in terms of what trees are going to be cut down. The applicant, who was the man initially here, said we're going to top down this many, we're going to top this many trees. Topping usually means you're cutting off the top. They're cutting them down. It's not, there's misrepresentations, all kinds of discussions. They have tried to work things out to get the planning board to agree, but the year is not because, that's just part of it. But mainly I want to address this open space and whether this is self-created. You look at Unionville, they have more open space. They put up solar panels all along there on Route 55. They're coming in, there was 300 trees, mature trees at stake. They say this was open space. That's not true. This was not open space. They had to cut down, the original plans to cut down 300 trees. There is wetlands on the property. This was a poorly chosen site. This site is not, the only reason they're coming in is somebody wanted to make some money. That's how I see it. It's going to create an uglier, I mean, we should be suspicious of any plan that has to disguise what they're doing. They have to put up all kinds of buffers and all kinds of screens and everything so people can't see what's going on. But the representation by the lawyer that this was open space and this was a good space is not a good space. They came in with a very, very poorly chosen space where they have to tear up a good part of our natural environment.
Yes. Hello again, Ms. Glavich.
So I would like to speak to the need for, if this variance is granted, I think, given what I've heard tonight, that I think it's important to have the conditions that the variance be contingent to a solar farm, because I don't think if they decide to leave in 15 or 20 years and someone else decides to buy that property and use it for something else, we don't want that. We want to be able to, as a community, be able to reevaluate the project and look at that lot line again, or that setback. I would also just like to make the comment that this is an 11-acre project?
Yeah, that's there.
Okay, it's an 11-acre project. They have to take down 2.5 acres of trees. That's about 25%. That's 1/4 of the property that they're clearing, and I personally think that's significant. I think that's substantial. Thank you.
Please come up and state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. I look like more than a 3-minute guy, huh? John Klein, I'm representing 159 South Greenhaven Road, so it's the property on the south end, on the bottom of the page here. So we've been back and forth. I've been coming to this since December. And I know Borrego's had a long road too. But you know, there was quite a bit of back and forth on the trees. We were up around 100, then we got down to 20. There was a variance on our property, which has now gone away, and now it looks like there won't be any trees cut along our property line. But I would like to just give you the thought, you know, kind of the theme. It's similar to what we heard. It doesn't fit, okay? Why are they asking for a variance? Is because it doesn't fit within the existing footprint. They need to get a bigger footprint. It doesn't fit in residential property. It fits much better where it's surrounded by commercial property. And why would that be? You know, the degradation of property values, all in the public domain, right? Why would property values degrade? Because the aesthetically unappealingness of a solar farm, and in addition to that, you know, there's been papers written on health concerns regarding living close to solar farms. And then my last it doesn't fit is kind of what's been talked about a lot. With all the open land, you know, it seems that you're trying to do something good with green technology, but at the same time, now you're destroying trees, which is part of the environment. So it's kind of an ironic situation. So I'll leave you with the last 3 words. It doesn't fit.
Just so you know, though, that that area is deemed industrial zoning.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
John Goulding, president of Dytron. Property sits up against it on the west side. I read the legislation for the town. I think it was well thought of, well written. Very specific about setbacks on all sides, whether it's residential or industrial. So when they put this program together, they knew what the statutes were. I don't understand why this would go to a variance if there were statutes specifically written for a solar farm that abut residential and industrial property.
Thank you.
Is this the library here?
Anyone else in the public comment?
Hi, I am Carolyn Alexis. I live next door to this farm. I think there were some misrepresentations made this evening in regard to the property. It is not a dilapidated farm. There is a big old farmhouse there where the property owner's son lives, actually rents, as well as other apartments in that house that are rented out to people that she's making money from. There's a big carriage barn that is used on the property, and there is a regular barn that is also used on the property. So it's far from dilapidated. That field out there is not being used for farming. But that's, you know, if that's dilapidated, I don't think that you would term it that. She does not live here. She lives in Florida. She comes up to visit a couple of weeks during the year. A week here, a week there. That's the most. She does not live here. This is really just a money-making proposition. Where my property sits, I'm looking dead on at it. And no amount of screening is going to cut my view. And you're talking about a long-term lease here. You know, it definitely does affect my property values. I don't think anybody would buy my house looking at that if it were there. And I am also going to be adversely affected by all the noise and the dirt that's going to come along with erecting this thing. So I have to say, right from the beginning, I was against it, and I'm still against it.
how long have you been a resident?
I've lived in my house a little over 30 years, I think 32 years.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Yep, next door.
Going Going once, going twice. Well, and at this time, I'd like to...
Oh, wait, we have a...
I just have a question. I know it's this. I wanted to go over what is the benefit to the community for...
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If
Yeah,
you're
you're
going to
gonna
ask a
have
question,
to-
could you just come up to the microphone and just... Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Franklin Sharmia, 22 Regent Drive. I just have a question. What is the benefit to these neighbors for you putting this project on the property? Because it seems like it's only benefiting the owner of the property. Like, are the neighbors going to get any tax write-off? Because it seems like they have to subscribe to benefit, and you're only offering them 10%, and then all of this is affecting them directly. Not the people who may subscribe that live miles away, but the people who live right there. Like, what is the benefit to them?
It's a fair question, obviously. Thank you. This is an allowable use under the zone. We are asking for a variance on as to the back property line. I cannot make an argument that says there's a direct benefit to the neighbors. That's not something we haven't discussed how that could happen. We are trying to minimize the impact on the neighbors. That's definitely something we're trying to do. I understand the issue, but it's not unlike any other private property issue where someone is seeking to put a development adjacent to a neighbor, and whether or not that does or doesn't benefit that neighbor. So I understand the issue. I understand it also has an impact, and the effort has been to try to mitigate it for the neighbors. It will contribute tax rates to the town. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that. So like Terry mentioned before, a lot of times these projects either will go into a pilot agreement with the town, which means a payment in lieu of taxes. This town does not do that, so instead they pay full property taxes. So you're getting also the tax revenue, the town gets the tax revenue, without, like I said before, without the burden that typically comes with getting additional tax revenue. You're not adding more space to the school district, you're not adding a big development that, is frequently getting visited by EMS and the fire department, things like that. And sewers, there's not gonna be any, you don't have to connect water, you don't have to connect sewer, you're getting all of that tax money, that tax revenue without the impact on that infrastructure. And as Sarah was mentioning before, what we're asking for and what the vote is
if I can do
is
this tonight.
a change in
Do I have
distance
to?
in a couple of spots. Yes, there are impacts, yes, people have concerns, I think that they've been able to address them very well. But those concerns are not necessarily directly related to the fee and difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If there's a concern about solar in general, I think that they try to mitigate that as much as possible. And one of the factors that I've seen, but it really comes down to the difference in heat. So that's all.
So I have a quick question, and if I thought of this, I'm sure your designers and engineers have thought of it. With the 3.2 megawatt, output that you're desiring, is there any way that you can reconfigure these solar panels onto the property and maintain that 150 foot of space that the town requires?
Not with land that's as good as this land. So like the land that we're asking for the variance on is previously cleared farmland.
Right.
Which is perfect for just putting a solar panel on, which has the least impact. It's the farthest away from any of the neighbors. This is the farthest point away from any of the neighbors that are here tonight. So we are pushing the system into the available space. It's the most logical space to use. It's the least impactful to any of the neighbors that we're asking for this variance on. It's open, it's farmland, and it's pushed up against the natural vegetated buffer along the back of the property. So if we didn't use this area, we'd be forced into the rest of the parcel, which all of the land is less quality for solar than this. So there's we've already pushed off of this property line. We've pushed back from here. We've already reduced the size of the system as much as we possibly.
Can you clarify for the public what lower quality land means?
Well, anything with, if we're clearing more trees
Yeah.
in other spots, that's going to be, impact habitat for, not even just endangered species, but just any species. If we're, if we're pushing closer to any other property lines, we're closer to actual houses that can see and, have potentially a visual impact. so if we didn't do this, we'd be wasting the property. We'd have to find a way to push the panels in another location. Now, if you're asking, can we, in the future, if technology gets better, you might be able to make the system size smaller, but right now we're already assuming that we're using panels that are like, haven't even come out yet because they're like 595 watts. Like, we know they're coming out, but we're already assuming the best possible panel that we can, so to make it as small as we possibly can. So we're already doing that. We've already maximized. We're very good at maximizing the efficiency of the tilt, exactly the angle that it's oriented. I think this is 270 degrees. So it's already maximized the efficiency to make it as small as we possibly can. So I guess, just to repeat, the land that we're here tonight about is just the setback variance, and the area that we're putting the panels is just the previously cleared open farmland. If we didn't use it, it would just be wasted land that we then have to find throughout the rest of the parcel that would be more impactful to the residents.
Got it, thank you.
Anybody else in the public?
This is our town attorney, by the way. If anyone wonders if it's Oz, it's not. This is the town attorney.
So I think there was a lot of comment from the public tonight, and I think there's an opportunity here for the board to once again review this application, given questions of the public, and I think you guys are going to be seeking some legal advice on this. Again, I said that earlier, but from the questions that I heard asked. So this time I'd recommend you adjourn the public hearing to be continued in November's meeting, and at that time, the board may be in a better position to make a decision.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I need more time.
So at this time, we're going to motion to adjourn this segment of the meeting to a later date, November, hopefully. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'm sorry, you're going to make a motion to adjourn the public hearing on this matter.
The public hearing on this matter, right.
So that would be November 3rd.
Yes.
Should we get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes, there's a motion open.
Second.
Second. Okay. Motion's approved to adjourn until the November 3rd ZBA meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if the applicant from 22 Regent Drive wants to present, I think we're going to public comment after that.
So the next item on our agenda is 22 Regent Drive, seeking an area variance at 22 Regent Drive, grid 6658-00-528923, zone R90. The applicant seeking a 10-foot setback variance from section 155, attachment 2, schedule B of the town code, which requires a 30-foot setback. Is the applicant present? Right?
So bad they had to sit through it.
Good evening, Ms. Franklin.
Hi, Sherman Franklin, 22 Regent Drive.
So you gave me 22 Regent Drive.
Great.
So this is the first time for us, to come any kind of, hearing or anything like that. But yet we put in for, well, they got it on paper for 10 feet, but it's really like 7 feet, 6 inches or something like that. It's for a shed that we try to put in our property, storage only. We spoke to the neighbor. We did everything that we came to the buildings department. What is it? Yeah.
You notified your neighbors?
Yeah,
Okay.
we notified the neighbors. We sent out letters. We immediately talked to our neighbor on both ends.
Okay.
We got written letters from them. They okayed
Did they provide the certified mail receipts to the building department?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, I did provide that all yesterday. She should have put it in my folder. Some of them got sent back because owners moved. Some didn't pick up the letters. Some of them, I think it's noted, the person no longer lives there, whatever the address. I sent it to the exact address that she provided. Just to clarify, so the required setback is 30 feet. We were actually just asking for about 20 to 25 feet instead of 30. So we're not going to be 6 feet from the property line. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. It's actually like 20 to 25. So we did obtain letters from the neighbor who is adjacent to that property line, Mr. Poughquag. He actually wrote a statement and signed it, as well as he did send back his certified receipt and signed it for, he said, at least one time 20 feet was okay for him. So we actually wanted to go over that 20 feet and go closer to 30, but because of the position of the property and the sloping, the driver could only put it, could only,
Yeah, the driver was having difficulties delivering the shed because our property is declined. So the space where we wanted the property, it literally needed to be level. I tried my best to level as much as I could, but it wasn't, I guess, enough. And but because of our house being close to the shed, he couldn't turn his truck to really, because it comes on a lift and he gotta pull the truck as he, put in the shed in place. But it was, it looks good. Trees is covering it. You can't even see it. It's not really disturbing the look, the visual of the neighborhood. It looks great. Yeah.
Is it on cinder blocks by any chance?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's up on the
It's
box.
not permanently planted into the ground.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to the point, we couldn't even bring it further back because there's like a what do you call a creek or some type of like water.
Yes, wetland.
Like underneath.
So if they try to bring it further back, that area flooded this year. So it would definitely cause damage. So the only place that he was able to do it was really right there. And there's so much growth that's there that's covering it. So it doesn't mess up at all any of the view of the homes, the view from my neighbor, the character. It actually is fine. And the only reason we had it rushed, it wasn't rushed, it was the company had a sale. Had a sale, and they were able to bring it, and we were trying to hustle so we could stay within the guidelines and follow the rules. So I did all the steps that they asked for us. Like I said, I do have letters. She let me just give it to you from the owner that's right next to, because we're 22. He's 20. Regent Drive, and he actually wrote it, I can highlight it and show it to you, but he also sent back the certified letter and signed it, but he signed it and
Just so I'm clear, and I apologize, I did not mean to interrupt you. Just so I'm clear, the filing is requesting a 10-foot setback, and you're asking for 20, which is closer, or 25. It's closer to the house.
It's closer to the house than not the property.
So the property line where the shed is about 24 feet and 6 inches, something like that. So take almost 30 feet.
Okay, but again, the applicant, the application is saying you're seeking a 10-foot setback.
She actually wrote it on one of these.
I guess this is my question. I'm a little confused too. Are you requesting a 10-foot variance?
So she wrote it on here is actually a 20-foot proposed. I don't know if you have this paper, but
yeah, we do.
We do.
That's basically what we're asking. It's more closer to the 30-foot, but it's just because of the way the house is sitting and the property line is not as close to the neighbor. It's closer to us.
Closer to the house.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is where the shed currently sits, you're actually looking to bring it even closer to the house from where it is right now.
No, it's actually now.
It's exactly where you want it.
Exactly where we want it.
Got it.
So it's 25 feet from the property line.
Okay.
It's 25 feet from the property line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
He couldn't, put it any
Yep, and it's under the trees, it's to
It's
the left of the
right.
house.
It's
Yeah,
totally
yeah,
blocked
yeah.
and-
They're seeking a 10-foot
Yeah,
variance.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
I can't,
So, yeah, well, the 10-foot variance, I guess she wrote it that way, like I said, this is.
Who's the one that,
I'm sorry, this was our first time really doing this, and we tried to explain to them that.
So right now, if we're saying that the shed is about 25 feet from the property line, 24, let's say 24 feet from the property line.
Yeah.
So the right, the proper way to say it is variant,
they're telling,
of 6
everything they're saying is absolutely.
No, variant.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you didn't stop by.
Next time I
The lady, the permit person?
Yeah, we went to see her. She saw everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no.
She's the one who.
So do we need to change anything, Daniel?
No, it sounds as though they're within 20 to 25 feet of the property line, so they're just seeking that 10-foot
Yeah, okay.
max variance.
Everything they're saying is absolutely
Yes,
accurate.
yes, yes.
Okay.
I
All right, so yeah, that are, if there's any members of the public who want to speak
No,
to
nobody's
this.
here.
No one's here.
No, yeah, okay.
They're all left.
If the board has any questions, now's the time, otherwise, you can make a motion to close the public hearing.
But it doesn't affect him directly, but it's on this side, so because of the trees and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
And just to clarify, initially, we requested the 10 feet, but when the delivery guy came,
Yeah.
He said he couldn't.
Yeah.
he couldn't go that
Yeah,
far.
yeah.
So he put it 25
Yeah.
feet away from the property.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I drove by the property not too long ago and I saw the terrain and how difficult it is, yeah.
At
Yeah,
first, he was like,
okay,
I don't think I can deliver it at all.
Okay.
And that was like,
Everything they're saying is absolutely accurate.
yeah, okay, all right.
No.
Well, at this time, unless you have anything else you'd like to share with the board?
I mean, do you have any other questions that maybe we could help you like over it because the reasons like it doesn't impact any physical or environmental conditions?
Yeah. I mean, if your neighbors haven't filed any grievances or haven't shared any negative feelings, or if you've, contacted your neighbors about this and they haven't said anything to the contrary of your request, because I think the neighbor to the left of your home where the trees are would have the issue. And if that neighbor doesn't have an issue, which the proof statement is the letter right in front of me, then I think we're good to go. So I think at this point, since there's no one from the public here, I'm going to close the public hearing. Right?
Make a motion.
Need a motion to close the public hearing?
I motion.
Second?
So,
Great. Public hearing is closed. So, based on this info,
I think
Now
we should-
you're gonna go through the 5 factors.
so an undesirable change in character of the
No.
neighborhood? I don't think so. Can this be achieved by some other means than granting a variance? No.
No.
They need the variance, yeah. Is the variance substantial? I don't think 10
No.
feet is substantial. I drove by the
yeah.
You did?
It's-
Yeah,
I wouldn't, if I was the homeowner, I would have no issue.
yeah,
Sorry, not the homeowner, the neighbor.
yeah.
Will the variance have an adverse effect on the impact of the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood?
No,
I don't think so either. So, is this alleged hardship self-created?
no.
Mother Earth, sloping
That's
hills.
why
Well,
Yeah.
So if that's the case, Mr. Chairman, I think the board's in a good position to consider a resolution, which I can read into the record and the board can take a vote on it. So I do have a resolution prepared. Whereas the Town of Beekman Zoning Board of Appeals has received an application from Charmia Franklin for an area variance involving property located at 22 Regent Drive, tax lot number 132200-6658-00-528923. This applicant is seeking the following relief: a 10-foot variance from the R90 side yard setback requirement. Whereas the project site is located in the R90 zone, and is whereas the granting of an area variance is like type 2 action under seeker. And whereas after due and proper notice, a public hearing was held on this matter on October 6, 2022, during which all who wished to speak were heard. And whereas a motion was made and seconded to grant the requested variances, And whereas after due deliberation, including careful consideration of the standard review of an area variance, namely the benefits to the applicant if the variance is granted, as weighed against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, the ZBA has determined that the criteria for issuance of an area variance has been met. Specifically, A, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance. After review of the facts and testimonies, as well as the board's observation of site conditions, the board finds as follows. There will be little to no effect on the character of the neighborhood. The area where the shed will be placed is shielded by a tree covering, and the shed itself is not changing in appearance and is consistent with other similar structures within the neighborhood. B, whether the benefits sought by the applicant be by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. There is not another feasible method to pursue. The property is sloped and a flat area is required for the shed's placement. The applicant must also avoid placing the shed above underground pipelines in the event repairs or other work is needed. C, whether the requested area variance is substantial. The board finds that the first variance requested is unsubstantial, or the variance requested is unsubstantial as it requires only a 10-foot variance and the shed will remain 20 feet from the property line. D, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. The board finds that there will be no adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. The proposed structure is consistent with other structures in the neighborhood. And E, whether the alleged difficulty is self-created. Board is finding that the alleged hardship is not self-created as the applicant's request is due to the topography of the lot. The slope nature of the lot requires the applicant to place the shed on the flat ground that exists within the lot. Now therefore be it resolved, the ZBA grants this application of Tremere Franklin for an area variance involving property at 22 Regent Drive. So now would be a good time for the board to entertain a vote to pass this resolution.
Okay, motion to vote on this resolution.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm right up the road from you guys.
I will get you an updated resolution, Mr. Chairman. I saw a couple typos that I want to fix, so I'll have that for you tomorrow.
Great.
You need to keep that letter I gave you?
We don't need it if you need it for your
Well,
records.
just for my file.
Yep.
then I
Yeah.
can,
Yeah,
have
keep everything.
it. Yeah. Thank
You know when you
you.
drive on Claphill at the end of Martin,
Uh-huh.
to the left,
Okay.
and there's like a green farmhouse with a field across the street.
Okay. I've driven by there.
That's me.
Oh. Yeah, we're fairly new.
Yes.
Been going on 2 years, so
Oh.
we're still learning. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much.
Oh, good luck
It
to
was
you
very
guys.
interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Yeah. Good luck to you guys.
Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Great.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Thanks.
You
So at this point, I motion to close the public hearing and our meeting this evening.
I second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You good?